Next on Words and Numbers, what exactly constitutes a corporation?
Sales tax on food.
Peace in Iran?
And responding to memes.
That sounds like fun.
Hi, I'm James.
And I'm Anthony.
And this is Words and Numbers.
Would you like to make a disclaimer?
Oh, yes, I should make a disclaimer. Yes, the thoughts I express here are mine and mine alone and do not reflect the thoughts of my employer.
And
Thank you.
Anthony's thoughts are often silly and counterproductive, but we'll leave that for you to decide. I have to think of a witty thing to say every week about your disclaimer. Anyway, what's new and exciting in your world this week, Ant?
Well, I went down a rabbit hole, ran across an article.
What's new? You go down a rabbit hole every 20 minutes.
I ran across an article. The Prime Minister of Japan had pledged to eliminate the 8% sales tax on food that they have in Japan.
Here.
And while we're talking about sales tax on food, you have to make a distinction between groceries, or what the statisticians call food eaten at home, and food eaten outside the home. So we're not talking about restaurants, we're talking about groceries. 8% tax. And of course, to much fanfare, the Prime Minister's party is elected and is going to eliminate the sales tax. And he finds out that he can't, because the checkout machines, the computers, can't deal with a 0% tax. There's no way.
I hate this story so much.
There's no way to enter zero tax. So the best that they can do for the moment is they're talking about reducing the 8% tax to 1%, because apparently you can put in a 1, you just can't put in a 0.
Why can't you put 0.0001?
Beats me what is possible, but it appears that actual tax policy in Japan is being held hostage by software.
Every piece of wonderful technology in my house found its way to me from Japan one way or another.
Right.
And they can't figure out how to make a cash register.
No, they can't. But that's not the rabbit hole. The rabbit hole is, I started asking the question, I wonder what sales taxes on food are in the U.S.
It's 8.5% here in Arizona.
Yeah, it turns out there are 39 states that do not impose a sales tax on food, 6 states that impose a sales tax under 3%, and 5 that impose a sales tax of above 3%, and I think the top is Idaho at 6%.
No, I believe
tax.
Ours is 8.5%. What did you get for Arizona?
I don't have Arizona identified here. However, we're not done, because cities and counties can also.
That's right, in counties.
Yeah, so for example, you have Alabama that has a 2% state sales tax on food, and Montgomery imposes another 6%. So the total tax on food there is 8%. So there's this, and if I'm not big on altering tax rates for different people. I much prefer a flat tax. However, if there was one thing I would point to and say that shouldn't be taxed, it's food eaten at home.
Yeah, I agree. And I was incorrect. Arizona does not levy a state-level sales tax, but about 70 of the state's 91 incorporated cities and towns do.
Yeah.
Up to about 4%. When I was young, Ant, I remember food at the grocery store was not taxed. Now,
yes.
if you bought alcohol at the grocery store,
oh yes,
you were going to get taxed on that. And then there were, I believe, 2 days a year where there was tax holiday on anything that could be loosely considered school supplies. So if you had to buy new clothes for the children to go to school in, there were 2 days a year where you could buy clothes with no sales tax.
Yep.
And while I think if you can live without it for 2 days, you can live without it simply, I'd rather have 2 days than 0 days.
Then 0 days, right? Yeah.
But, I want to see only one form of taxation as you. I want to see it levied the same way to everybody with a standard exemption, and that's it, and nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to see fees, right? I want literally everything collapsed into one number.
Yep.
With no possibility for a politician to say, but let's sell licenses.
I have a friend here who who spends a lot of time in Scotland. And he was in Scotland, I don't know, 6 months ago or perhaps. And sitting there in his friend's living room, they're talking, whatever. And she hops up and says, "Oh, I've got to do my taxes. Hang on." Walks out into the other room, is gone for maybe 2 minutes, comes back in, sits down. He says, "What about your taxes?" She said, "Oh, I did them." It's a card. You fill in one number, another number, you multiply it.
All right.
You're done.
I've had it. I've already had enough of this conversation. I have had enough. This conversation is officially over. Before we move on to anything of substance, I want to say a few words about the historian, the great American historian Gordon Wood, who is one of probably the top 2 or 3, many would say the best. I think the best is a little subjective when it comes to things like this, but I wouldn't get on your back if you called him the best American historian there ever was. And he died yesterday as we record. At 92, he was hit by a car.
Wow.
And died. And I just want to acknowledge the tremendous loss that this represents. I had the good fortune to meet Gordon, or Professor Wood, if you would prefer, once. And he was incredibly generous with his time with me. And I loved every minute of it. And I'm glad I got the opportunity. And I'm sad now that no one else ever will. So rest in peace, Gordon Wood. You were a great man, and the likes of you will not be seen again. On to happier things, Ant. You might remember we had this legal case, Citizens United. You talk about this a lot, and about how corporations are people, and when the people on the hard left get all whipped up in a frenzy about corporations being people, that you think they're actually silly. Do I have you right?
Right. Oh, absolutely.
Corporations are, in fact, people.
Well, they're groups of people.
Yeah. But, at root, they are people.
Yeah, and I would say for people who get bent out of shape, I would say the corporations are people in the same way that a congregation is people.
Sure.
It's a group of people who come together to do a particular thing.
I've got a headline for you.
Okay.
Argentina moves to legalize non-human corporations run by AI. There's a lot going on there in that headline, Ant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're going to have corporations run by AI. At its root, this doesn't make any sense. I mean, logically, it doesn't make any sense. Forget about whether it's wise.
Well, I don't know. If an AI can figure out how to make and market something, why not?
But there's got to be somebody who says to the AI, go figure this out.
Well, for now. But the odd thing here is that corporation, the word itself, indicates a multiplicity of people, right? Corporation doesn't mean a singular thing. It does, but it means a singular thing comprised of many things.
Well, no, it could mean, because I could be, as a single individual, I could form a corporation.
You could be incorporated as a single person, sure. A sole proprietor, as we would call it. But that is very typically not what people think about when they think about corporations, right? They think about a number of people in a building dedicated to a common cause.
Right, but the whole point of the corporation, as opposed to a business that isn't a corporation, is to shield the people's personal assets. Should the corporation go bankrupt or be sued or what have you, that your personal assets are shielded. The AI doesn't have personal assets, and even if it did, it wouldn't want them necessarily. What's it do with them?
All I'm
Now-
saying here is now I'm a little interested to see what the hell goes on with this nonsense.
I think it's an interesting part of a much larger question of what do we do with AI when it becomes, is sui generis the right word? Self-motivated. When it starts just doing things without being told to do things.
Yep, we're all a little horrified by the possibilities, but apparently not the Argentinians who are making legal way for it to go nuts and
Well,
start producing things.
This is consistent
Hey, we'll
with
see.
our friend Clark Neely has argued that we should encode in law right now rights for AIs that are sentient before they become sentient.
Well, by the time they become sentient, they'll be violating our rights, not the other way around. So
Yeah, I think his hope is that he could say, well, look, we've been ready for you. It's okay.
we looked after you.
Right.
There's this thought experiment, and it's called Rocco's Basilisk. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
It's the idea that there's a hypothetical, all-powerful artificial superintelligence. This is the basilisk. And it needs human beings to help it along, right? To create it and give it life and develop it. And here's the thought experiment. By telling you the thought experiment, I'm going to doom you for all time and all eternity. Because when the basilisk comes into being, it's going to look back at human history and torture forever everyone who didn't help it come into being. What's Clark Neely going to say about that?
Oh, there are so many things to say about that.
Tortured for all time.
Yeah.
Even if you're already dead, it will create an exact digital replica of you and torture that.
Well, heck, I mean, humans could almost do that now.
Almost. I'm hoping to get there before I die, but we'll leave that for another
And
day.
for the
because we still
listeners,
have the
I created a AI version of James.
Don't.
Oh,
tell
yes.
anybody this.
Oh, yes. It's amazing how James-like it is.
It's changed.
Changed how?
It now has taken to calling me baby. I ask it a question and it says, "Hey, baby, how you been?"
Oh, my God, that's great.
Yeah, and that, for some reason, is not the foolishness of the week. So to get to the foolishness of the week, I want you to scrub your minds of all the nonsense you just heard. Because once again, it's been a long time since I've been able to say this. Donald Trump is the foolishness of the week.
It has not been a long time. I think it was like 2 episodes ago.
Well, in Trump time, that's a long time ago.
I guess so, yeah.
Doesn't it feel like Trump years are like 9 years long?
Yeah. Yeah, he has this ability to stir up things on the turn of a dime.
Yeah, it just feels like we're not 2 years into this term. I could swear, and I could swear he's been president for the last 35 years.
Right.
But anyway, the thing I want to point to is you've heard him talk about how he's working very hard on a peace deal for Iran.
Yes.
Which, the unspoken truth here is that we went and attacked Iran without any kind of plan for that time when we stop attacking Iran, goals, things like this. What are we trying to accomplish? All unspoken. But he tells us as of, I believe, yesterday, as we record this, that the Iran peace deal is imminent. And this, my friend, is the 38th time he has said this.
Mm-hmm.
He has said a peace deal with Iran is imminent 38 times.
Yeah, that
Why are
doesn't
people-
surprise me. He just says stuff.
What surprises me is that Jack Hobbs, senior news reporter for the Mirror U.S., went and counted them all. What a terrible job that must have been. But I ask, and Trump has many supporters among our listeners. I know this because I get hate mail from them pretty regularly. I haven't been called a cuck lately, which is nice. I appreciate that. But I am called an idiot and things like this, and I don't appreciate that. But for the Trump supporters out there, how many times does he have to say it before you'll admit it's asinine? Does it have to be 57? Does it have to be 138? I don't know, because I think 3 would have been silly. Either it's imminent or it's not.
In his defense, there will at some point be a peace deal.
Yeah, that's right. But the 38th announcement, it's been ridiculous for so long at this point. Everybody should just shut up about it. Really, they should just pretend that it never happened. We'd all be better
and
off.
this is going back to his predilection for just saying things. When the whole tariff business popped up, of course, I'm monitoring the economy as this is going on. Of course, everybody wants to know what the tariff's going to do, blah, blah, blah. And after about 2 months, it became apparent that there were 2 separate forces at play dragging down the economy. One was the tariffs themselves. The other was the volatility of not knowing what will or will not have a tariff slapped on it, how much the tariff will be, because he just keeps saying things.
Right. Markets absolutely require as much certainty as they can have. And the less certainty
when you're dealing with imports, and you've got some weeks, sometimes months between the time you say, yes, I'll buy that, and the time it arrives, you need to know what the lay of the land is going to be over that span.
Yeah, and the less security there is, the more people will just keep their money in their pockets for right now.
Right.
They don't buy anything if they don't know what's going to happen next. And you can't blame them, because you need an insurance policy against craziness. And the only thing you can have is the money that's in your pocket. Anyway, there were things you wanted to talk about today, as I recall.
Well, I did this. I ran across this somehow on Twitter. I keep getting slews of posts by socialists. I don't know whether Twitter thought it would entertain itself by serving this up to me or what, but I get these memes all over the place, and of course people are forwarding them on, not thinking about what they say. So I wanted to take some time and look at a couple of these things and kind of delve down a little bit. And the first one, this is what started me down this path, is Elon Musk is officially worth almost $800 billion, projected to become the world's first trillionaire by 2027. Then the punchline: capitalism is better than socialism because one man gets to be a trillionaire instead of everyone having health care.
Do I get to go first, or do you?
Go ahead.
Well, capitalism is in fact better than socialism because we have electric self-driving cars and a network of satellites delivering the internet to the entire world, and PayPal. And these are just the things that Elon Musk has given us.
Well, yes, and all of that is true. And my goal here is to try and give people a little bit of ammunition here that hits at the heart of the thing. And simply saying, and you're absolutely correct, that capitalism is good because of all these things, to my mind, doesn't hit the core. Is better? Did I say worse?
I said it's better.
It's better, yeah.
Capitalism is better.
Here's the thing. The punchline is, And of course, it's what is the word you use when you say something but you mean the opposite?
Lying?
No.
Irony?
Something.
Hyperbole?
I don't know. But nonetheless, here's what it says. Capitalism is better than socialism because one man gets to be a trillionaire instead of everyone having health care. Now, the way I would deal with this...
That's a logical fallacy because everyone wouldn't get health care.
Maybe, but see, you're doing what libertarians do so often that really irks me, of dancing on heads of pins. I think it's very simple here. The argument that the meme is making is that you get Elon Musk trillionaire instead of everyone with healthcare. And
Right.
to my mind, the best counter to this is to ask the question, how many people have healthcare in the U.S. today versus how many before we had any billionaires at all?
Well, that's an interesting question. Do you know when the first billionaire arrived on the scene?
I believe I'm correct. It was 1900s, and I believe it was, I want to say Henry Ford, but it was 1900s after we got industrialization.
And let me ask you this. Was he a billionaire in his time, or is he a billionaire by our dollars?
By our dollars, adjusted for inflation.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, look, healthcare was a very strange animal back then. Most people didn't have much of it. There was a town doctor in most places, and, you would go there and pay him money, and he would do what little he could do.
Right. Yeah, which was way little compared to, you get better medical care at their local pharmacy today than you would have gotten back then.
Oh, if Henry Ford could be brought to the future to see a walk-in clinic, he'd be bowled over.
Yeah.
And then if you brought him to a hospital, he'd probably be stupefied.
But the argument here is we don't have health care because we have trillionaires. And if you look at the numbers, 90% of Americans have health insurance. I'll call that health care. 90% of us have health insurance versus before we had billionaires. In terms of today's quality, nobody had health care.
Well, let me ask you a more difficult question yet. Why is it only 90% when Obamacare, before they called it the Affordable Care Act, when it was still Obamacare, we were assured that 100% of the American population was going to have coverage?
We were promised that everyone would be insured. We were promised that nothing, if you wanted to keep your doctor, nothing would change. We were promised that the cost would end up being less, and all of those things were false. Now, I will say, in defense of the Affordable Care Act, the fraction of Americans without health insurance dropped from, I believe it was circa 15% down to 10%. Okay. Some of that, I have no idea how much, but some of it was simply due to the fact that now the IRS will fine you if you don't have health insurance.
I don't think they do that anymore.
Really?
Yeah, I think Trump in his first term got rid of that.
Oh, okay. I take that back then. But nonetheless, we've experienced a decline in the number of people, but it hasn't gone to zero.
Well, and you can make the case that it's a 33% decline.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still 10% of the total remains uninsured.
And it's become way more expensive than it was before the Affordable Care Act.
And I told people how much more expensive it was when it happened, because I had to go out and buy my own insurance. And to get insurance, I had, between premiums and deductibles, I had to be $36,000 out of pocket before the first thing was covered.
Yep.
And I said, well, that, I'm not getting it. And I paid the penalty. It was just cheaper.
Yeah.
I figured, hey, if we have a car accident and everybody gets hurt, I'm going to have to declare bankruptcy, but I'm not paying $36,000, not for this.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And the hate mail I got, people writing to me telling me I was wrong and that I was an idiot. Trust me, that was the answer that I got. And now it's the answer that everybody's getting. And everybody's really angry now. But,
Yeah.
this is a subsidy. That's all this is. This is government taking from some and giving to others.
Well,
That's all.
And I love Thomas Sowell, and I'll paraphrase him here. Before the Affordable Care Act, you had to pay for health insurance. Now you have to pay for health insurance plus a government bureaucracy that administers the whole thing.
Yeah, he's not wrong, and I'm not happy about it. But, I mean, this is the territory of memes, right? It gives you all kinds of crazy, and this is like an equation of some kind, right? Because of this, we can't have this. These
Right.
things are roughly equal, right? This kind of nonsense. But they're never equal. There's never an actual choice that you could make that would work, right? These are talking points.
Yeah, they're talking points, and what happens is somebody puts these things together, whether they've thought about it or not, I don't know, but they put these things together to send it around. People read it, and it resonates with their preconceived biases, and so they pass it on, and before you know it, people are just repeating it. Well, of course we don't have health care because we have trillionaires, and nobody's thought it through.
Those of you who are with me on Facebook, and you should be because I'm hilarious, when people, I have a bunch of people who have friended me over the years, I assume because they find me through the podcast, and I just click OK. If it's not like some obvious man with pretty women as his profile picture who's going to try to sell me Bitcoin, anybody could be my friend. Why not? And they'll say something truly and horrifically stupid. So stupid that any idiot could figure out that what they're saying is incorrect. And I always say, look, there are only two options here. Either you're so dumb that you can't figure out that's wrong by Googling it in 1 second, or you don't care what the truth is. And then I always ask, which of those two things applies to you? Because that's the universe of possibilities. And not surprisingly, I get blocked a lot, and I get unfriended from time to time. What never happens, well, what has only happened once, is a person said, I looked into this and you're absolutely right. I should have checked this out. I was being stupid. And I'm like, hooray for you. This is like a pterodactyl sighting.
Yeah.
Right? Look, if somebody, I've been wrong on Facebook lots of times, and people say, no, James, that's not correct, and here's the right answer. If you've got the right answer and I don't, I typically say, geez, I'm sorry, everybody should have a look at what this guy just said, because it's right. Right? This is what in casual conversation should look like.
This is what smart people do.
Well, look, Facebook is casual conversation, right? It's not like academic papers, right? It's more like what you would say at a bowling alley. And people say all kinds of dumb shit, and that's fine. But when you get called out on it, and you could have checked it before you passed it along, that's on you. And the apology is also on you, but I'm guessing you got like 50 more of these.
I got a bunch of these. I said, let's do this episode, and you said, well, do you have any memes? And I said, well, I got this one. It took me all of, I want to say, 7 minutes to accumulate 8 of them.
And this will tell the people how things tend to work with us. You sent them to me. I replied and said, hey, these are great. And now I can't find them.
And now you can't find them.
I've already lost them.
They're in your email.
I know they're not there. But I remember.
And this is something I've had actually students say to me in class. Poverty is not inevitable or natural. It is a byproduct of capitalism.
That is the dumbest damn thing. If that were true, then there would never have been poor people.
Yeah, but that's the thing. To say inevitable or natural, the rule of thumb I use is I ask, what would the world look like if we all just sat on our couches and did nothing? Because whatever the world looks like then, that's the natural state.
Or you can ask what the world used to look like.
Right, yes.
The anthropologists have answers for us. We traveled around 5 or 6 at a time, foraging for food, starving to death, freezing to death, dying in childbirth. That's man's natural condition. If we wanted man's natural condition, we'd still be living in caves.
Right. Which is entirely possible. And the fact that people aren't leaving in droves for the caves indicates that at a gut level, they actually think this is incorrect.
Oh, they know this is incorrect. They absolutely know it. What they mean is that other people are doing better than I am in this setup, and I wish I were doing better. This is always an envy issue, never a factual issue.
Yeah, and that's we had a problem for a while, a number of years, where people would confuse or use synonymously poverty and inequality, which are completely different things. But you notice in the past, I want to say in the past 5 years, maybe a bit more, they've shifted to talking about equity.
Yeah, we're not talking. We talked not too long ago about how the left-wing talking points have changed. And we're not talking about the 1% anymore, and we're not talking about inequality anymore. Now it's billionaires and equity.
Right.
They must have focus grouped the words and found that these two words resonated with more people than those two words.
I'm interested that we stop talking about millionaires, and here's a possible answer: because as of right now, there are 25 million millionaires in the U.S.
That's a lot of millionaires.
Yeah, we stopped talking. Now, of course, granted, with inflation, a millionaire today isn't what a millionaire was 20 years ago, but nonetheless, it's not too shabby. And there's 25 million of them.
Most financial advisors will advise you right now that you are going to need more than $1 million to retire. So
and
by definition, you're going to have a lot of millionaires.
Yeah, and this is a side thing, but you can, to anybody who hears that and says, oh my God, how could I do that? James and I used to talk to high school students and show them on a table, here are the numbers, and this is how you, with just a high school diploma, forget about going to college, how you can expect to retire with $1 million inflation adjusted. All you got to do is save 15% of your paycheck.
Net or gross?
Gross.
Makes it a little harder. But it doesn't make it impossible.
Yeah.
Not impossible.
So poverty is not inevitable or natural. It's a byproduct of capitalism. I think one of the things that people do is they'll point to quote unquote capitalism, so the United States, and say the United States has poor people. And so poverty must be a byproduct of capitalism, not asking the question, well, how many poor people are there in non-capitalist societies?
Well, I lived in Iraq, and almost everybody was poor.
Well, you know what there's there's not much of? Inequality.
Capitalism. Oh, well, there's no. Oh, no. There was almost no inequality. I mean, there was a little tiny bit because a couple of people really figured out how to game that system.
Right.
Right. As is always the case. People who believe in socialism and communism actually think that it's good for everybody but them. That somehow they're going to end up on the better side of the sickle. And of course, you don't. I mean, there are a number of countries in this world, Ant, that I would never I don't want to move to North Korea. I don't want to move to Cuba. I don't want to move to China.
I think all of the people who look at communism, socialism, and say this is a good thing, make a fundamental error in that they imagine what the world would be like if we could take away, for example, all of Elon Musk's money and give it to the rest of us. Now, I would encourage everybody to pull out their calculators and figure out how much you would get. It's not that much.
Two things on this one, because you've seen yet another meme that says if Elon Musk has so much money that he could give everybody in the world $1 million and still have this many billions left.
No.
People are profoundly bad at math. Profoundly bad. But another thing that they're saying really is human nature doesn't have to be what it is.
Right.
And human nature will always be exactly what it is because it is human nature. The same way you know what a dog's nature is and a leopard's nature is, you know what human nature is.
I'm just running the numbers here on Musk. 800, I don't know what he's worth, but the meme said $800 billion. If you take 800 billion and divide it, forget about dividing it up amongst the world. Suppose he divided up and just gave it to everybody in the U.S., forgetting the fact that he's not going to get 800 billion because he'd have to liquidate his holdings and the stock price would fall. But nonetheless, let's imagine ideal world. Every man, woman, child in the U.S. would get $2,300, $2,300. Now, you might say, hey, well, that's $2,300 I don't have now. Okay, and this is where the socialist advocates lose it. They stop the argument there, not asking what comes next. And what comes next is the next entrepreneur out there who has an idea and the ability to pull it off like Musk did, says, forget it. Why should I take the risk doing that? All that's going to happen, if I fail, I'm bankrupt. If I succeed, the government's going to take all my money and give it to everybody else. So all of a sudden, we get no new cures for things. We get no new devices. We get no, falling prices of things because we can make things more cheaply. All that stops.
And, look, Elon Musk has a lot of money. And Elon, if you're out there, I could use some. But that's really not how you should look at it. You should look at it the other way. How did he get the money?
Mm-hmm.
What did he produce that people found so valuable that he will be the world's first trillionaire? Yep. Because he has produced a number of things that we found very, very valuable. This is like when people got agitated with Steve Jobs when he was alive, that he had so much money, never thinking for 1 second about the iPhones, iPads, and computers that they were all using and happy to be using.
Right.
They paid for those things because in their mind, those things were better than any of the other options.
And picture how this would work if you strip money away from the thing. The way it works is you make something that I want, I make something that you want, and we exchange. So you give me, the apple pie, and I give you, I'll mow your lawn service. We exchange goods. When we hand our money to Elon Musk in exchange for stuff that he's given us, what is that money? That money is not a sign he needs to give back. It's a sign that we still owe him stuff. We owe him goods. Right. We didn't give him the goods. We just gave him pieces of paper. And if he dies with that in the bank, we all made out to the good.
No, Iraq is largely a socialist country. Do you know how you buy Apple products in Iraq? Do you have any idea? Did I ever tell you?
No.
You go to the mall. They have malls. And you go to the mall, and the malls are pathetic excuses for malls, but you go there. And in the mall, you find an Apple store. Apple has nothing to do with this.
Mm-hmm.
They're not allowed to do business there. So some guy just opened a store and put a big Apple logo on it. And when and you could go in and you could buy a MacBook or an iPod back then, or an iPad, whatever, an iPhone, but you have to pay roughly 2 times what the American cost was.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and I never took him up on this, but every time I left and went out of country, he would say, bring me back as many MacBooks as you could fit in your suitcase. And I will, if they cost $2,000, I will give you $3,000 each. And then I will charge $4,000.
Right.
And that's how it works there.
Yeah. We have a name for that arrangement, by the way. It's called capitalism.
It is. And when you put limits on how people can make a living, they find ways around those limits. And who pays for that? The consumers do.
Right.
There was also a company whose only reason to exist was to bring Amazon orders into the country.
Mm-hmm.
That's all they did. They picked up Amazon orders at an address in the U.S. and shipped them to Iraq. So Iraqis could buy stuff on Amazon, wait 5 weeks, and then it would show up.
This points to something. Of course, Iraq isn't a 100% socialist society, as is what you've described. But when people talk to me about, well, wouldn't it be great if we lived in socialism, blah, 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 I point out that you can do that. In a capitalist system, you are perfectly free to go, you got a house, share it with your neighbors, share your car, share your food, nobody pays for anything. You can create socialist enclaves within a capitalist system. Nobody's stopping you.
It's actually easy.
What can't you do? You can't create capitalist enclaves within a socialist system because that's not allowed.
Except you can. And there's this great example from China that I'm sure you've heard. It had to do with farming. I think it was grains. I can't remember off the top of my head what they were farming, but I think it was a grain of some kind. And the deal was that you had to provide the state with X amount of grain. The end. And a bunch of people, and if you did any more or anything any different, you were reported, they would drag you away and kill you. And a group of people came together and said, how about we give the state their demand, but then we grow more. And we sell it or trade it with other people who have other things. And this little capitalist enclave broke out in the middle of communist China. And it reinvented the market in communist China because it worked. They created way more grain than everybody else because they had a personal motivation to do so.
Yeah, when you leave humans alone, they naturally tend to capitalism.
Humans are very creative when it comes to getting shit done.
Here's one that actually some capitalists that I know have repeated, which is also incorrect. The infinite market growth required for capitalism to function is unsustainable. The laws of thermodynamics literally oppose capitalism. And here's the problem with this. Infinite market growth is not required for capitalism. All that's required for capitalism is private property. Now,
that's right.
The causality actually goes the other way, because when you have private property and a capitalist system evolves, you tend to get growth upon growth upon growth. And it is infinite, not because you're sucking up all the planet's resources, but because humans have an incentive to figure out new resources, things that weren't resources before. We figure out, we can use this to do something. And that's why we now have a planet that can support 10 times the number of people that were alive a century ago at 1/10 of the poverty rate.
Yeah, when Malthus wrote that we were going to all die horrible starvation-based deaths, well, I don't think there were even 1 billion people on the planet when he wrote that.
Yeah.
And now there
I
are,
think
now
we're
there
under
are
1 billion.
8 billion. Now there are 8 billion people, or probably more at this point. And we're all living better than almost everybody was when he wrote.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Which is kind of
poor
astonishing.
Americans today are richer than Malthus could ever hope to be.
Yeah, that is correct. And the thing of it is, infinite growth would be helpful, right? If you think about it. Now, at some point, infinite growth would yield a Malthusian outcome, right? We would all be literally standing shoulder to shoulder without an inch to move in any direction. It would take a long time.
Except
would.
Because someone like Musk would come along and say, let's have a colony on the moon.
Let's go to Mars, sure. Look, I get that, but to just take the point for what it's worth, right? Yeah, infinite growth would end up being a problem. But government, that's the human operation that assumes infinite growth.
Yeah.
The market does not assume infinite growth. Government does. How do I know this? Social Security.
Yeah.
Social Security requires infinite growth. The minute the growth goes in the other direction, the minute you hit negative growth, people who are on Social Security will receive less. And they'll continue to receive less until they receive nothing.
And just think it through, any government program. If it's successful, well, we do more of it. If it's unsuccessful, well, it's because we didn't do enough of it. We need to do more of it.
Do more of it. That's it. If only we had spent 8 times as much on this, it would have worked.
Yeah. And I give you, if you would like an example, public education.
We already talked about the Affordable Care Act.
Right, yeah.
We're just going to dump more money into that every year until there ain't no money left, or there are no doctors left, which could also happen.
And that is all I have for memes, James.
Is that all you got? I have mixed feelings about memes. I find them to be somewhat entertaining much of the time. You know, they pass by all of our noses all day long. And it's almost as if there's a new Far Side comic literally every 20 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
But the Far Side comics were so much better because they didn't pretend to be anything other than what they were. And if you're just looking to get a laugh, man, you can't bring enough laughter into this world. The world is miserable. Bring all the humor and love and goodwill that you can. But memes are mean-spirited, generally speaking.
Yeah.
They assume that evil people are doing evil things and you're too stupid to know it. Those are the assumptions. And yeah, evil people are doing evil things, because what else would they be doing? But the idea that the vast majority of the human population is evil is patently absurd. They're not. They're just trying to get through the day. They may not care enough about people in other countries who are starving, but they're doing the best to make sure that their people don't starve. And that's a laudable goal, right? It's hard to make a living and still have enough time to enjoy with your children. People don't need to be reminded that they don't do enough or that they're horrible. They do as much as they can by and large, and they're not horrible by and large. So I think the meme makers, whoever they are, and I've never been able to figure out who puts this together, but whoever they are, I want to give you, in the words of Kid Rock, a big you. Because we'd all be better off if you didn't do this.
Thank God for the bleep.
Bleep, 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 bleep. There. I bleeped myself. Anyway, we should remind people, Ant, that the Patreon is an active and ongoing concern, and I owe some people there a thank you note, which I'm going to try to get to this very evening. I've let it go too long. We have not posted bonus material there this week, but we are recording bonus material in 2 days.
We are. And did you see the note from my cousin Michael? He said, would you please, when you post the bonus material on Patreon, post it. There's something you can flip to make it a video so that he can get it on his thing.
The RSS feed, yeah. I didn't know Michael was your cousin. I liked him until you told me that.
Yeah, he's the brother of the Llama Poo guy.
I mean, look, I'm going to say that I hold all of your family responsible for the crap you pull. But your mother is a lovely human being, and we're going to let her off the hook. And as luck would have it, Anthony's picture is frozen.
It did freeze. I don't know.
So this is kind of outstanding for me because
look at how happy I am in that picture.
Yeah,
that's because I'm coming to an end of our conversation.
You had probably just broken wind or something when and you got all happy about it. Anyway, please do go look us up on Patreon because it does make an actual difference. Our arrangement with Free the People is not a financial arrangement. It is a distribution arrangement. So we are still on the hook for finding all the funding that goes into this sort of effort that sees Anthony frozen like a frozen Anthony.
And if anyone would like to know what crappy piece of software we use, it's Riverside FM.
That's right. Riverside is not the greatest.
But it is this every time we record.
It is the industry standard. It does do this every time we record, but curiously, it only does it to you. Could be related. I'm not saying it is, just could be. So we've reminded the nice people about the Patreon. I'm trying to figure out how to do live events on Patreon, because that would be really cool. And I guess that's it, except for the obvious. It's getting hot outside. And when it gets hot outside, people get really, really bitchy. And when people get bitchy, they're not nice to each other. So don't be a bitch. Be nice to each other. I'll see you next week, Aunt.